Okay, so, wow. You guys have really outdone yourselves with this HBAR research. Seriously, I'm impressed. It seems like you're all trying to decide, and is this crypto about to come roaring back to life? Or is it going to go extinct like a dinosaur?
Yeah.
We took a deep dive into all your research notes, articles, the whole shebang, and things like pretty interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, you know what strikes me right away? It's just the sheer range of things that people are saying HBR could potentially be used for. I mean, your research touches on everything from revolutionizing real estate to, like building trust in AI systems. It's pretty wild.
Right. Like I'm reading about using HBAR to own a piece of the Empire State Building, and then the next minute it's all about algorithms and bias. Talk about a whirlwind. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's back up a sec.
Right.
For anyone who might be new to this whole thing, what exactly is HBAR?
So at its most basic, HBAR is the cryptocurrency that runs on the Hedera Hashgraph network. You can think of it kind of like the fuel that powers this whole ecosystem. And Hedera itself, well, it's aiming to be the next evolution of blockchain technology. Faster, more efficient, you name it. It wants to be better than the traditional blockchains.
Okay, so we're not just talking about another Bitcoin wannabe. Got it. But from what I'm seeing in all this research, there are some pretty big claims being made about HBAR. It's on the verge of something huge EE. What's fueling all this excitement?
Well, one thing that jumps out is the recent price surge. HBR has been on a tear lately. It's actually even been outperforming some of the more well-known cryptos, like Stellar Lumens or XLM. And it doesn't look like just a temporary pump and dump either. The trading volume is super high, which tells us that there's sustained interest.
So it's not just hype. There's actual money flowing into HBR. That definitely gets my attention. But what's driving it? Is it all just speculation, or is there something more substantial going on?
Well, there's always an element of speculation in crypto. That's just the nature of the beast. But with HBAR, there's a growing awareness of its utility. Like one of your sources highlighted the rapid growth of DeFi, decentralized finance. On the Hedera network, there's this decentralized exchange called Saucer Swap Labs built on Hedera, and it's just hit a record-breaking weekly volume of $97 million. That's not just people messing around, that's real-world use. And that's ultimately what gives a cryptocurrency long-term value.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see the appeal here. So we've got a crypto that's performing well, it's seeing real-world use, and it's aiming to revolutionize, well, pretty much everything. But let's break it down a bit. What makes HBAR and this Hedera network different from all the other blockchain projects out there?
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. Hedera doesn't actually use the typical blockchain structure. Instead, it uses something called a DAG, which stands for Directed Acyclic Graph.
Uh, okay, you lost me there. Can we get a translation for those of us who don't speak fluent crypto?
Sure, so imagine a blockchain, like a single lane highway. All the transactions have to get in line and wait their turn. But a DAG, it's like having multiple lanes. Transactions can happen simultaneously, no more traffic jams.
So basically, it's like a blockchain, but on a super highway. That makes sense. It explains all the hype about speed and efficiency.
Exactly. And because it can handle so many transactions at once, it uses way less energy than traditional blockchains, which is great for the environment. But what really sets Hedera apart is its governance model.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing something about that. It's not your typical decentralized setup, right? Tell me more.
You got it. So instead of being completely decentralized, Hedera is governed by a council of up to 39 organizations. And get this, we're talking about some seriously big names. Google, LG, Boeing, Ubisoft. These aren't companies that just jump on any trend that comes along.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that these major companies are not only backing this thing, but they're actually involved in running it? That's a pretty big vote of confidence. But I got to ask, doesn't that kind of go against the whole idea of decentralization in crypto?
That's a really good point, and it's something that a lot of people in the crypto community debate. But Hedera's argument is that this hybrid approach, it strikes a balance. You get the innovation of decentralization, but also the stability that comes from having established players involved.
It's like bringing together the best of both worlds. I could see how that would be attractive, especially for companies that are looking to get into blockchain.
Exactly. It brings credibility and stability to a market that can be pretty volatile, and it seems to be working. This governance model is attracting a lot of attention. But it's not just about big names in theory. Your research highlighted some really cool real-world applications of HBAR, stuff that's happening right now.
Okay, yeah, let's hear it. What are some of these applications that caught your eye?
One that really stood out was the use of HBAR to tokenize carbon credits. Imagine if anyone, no matter how much money they have, could invest in fighting climate change and potentially even earn a return while doing it. That's the power of HBAR and this thing called tokenization.
Hold on, hold on. We need to unpack this tokenization thing. I've seen it mentioned a few times, but I need a little more explanation. What exactly does it mean? And why is everyone making such a big deal about it?
Okay, so basically, tokenization is like taking a real-world asset. It could be anything. Real estate, a work of art, even carbon credits. And you turn it into a digital token, which can then be traded on a blockchain.
So instead of owning like a physical deed to a property, you'd have a digital token that represents your ownership.
Exactly. And because it's on a blockchain, it's secure, transparent, and easy to transfer. You cut out all the middlemen and red tape.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This could be huge. It's like democratizing access to investments. That used to be out of reach for most people. I can already see the headlines. HBAR, the key to millennial millionaires.
Uh-huh. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But the potential is definitely there. And it goes way beyond just real estate. Your research even mentioned a project using HBR
Right.
to track the authenticity of products, like from the moment they're made to when they end up in your hands.
So you're saying I could scan a QR code on my coffee and know exactly where the beans were grown, who roasted them, every step of the way. That's some next-level transparency.
Exactly. It's all about bringing trust and accountability to supply chains, which is becoming more and more important these days. But perhaps the most interesting application we found was the potential for HBAR to be used in creating more trustworthy AI systems.
Okay, now that's something I definitely want to hear more about. AI is already changing the world in so many ways, but there are a lot of concerns about bias and misuse. How could HBAR help with that?
Well, that's where the transparency and immutability of blockchain come in. Imagine if every piece of data used to train an AI algorithm was recorded on a blockchain for anyone to see and verify.
Yeah.
No more black boxes, no more hidden biases.
So it's like having a permanent record of an AI's education. You can make sure it's not being fed biased data or manipulated for bad purposes. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it could be a game changer. It's all about building trust and accountability in AI, which is crucial as this technology becomes more integrated into our lives.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Dade, Eki technology, tokenization, trustworthy AI. My head's spinning a little, but in a good way. It's clear that HBAR and Hedera Hashgraph are more than just another crypto trying to cash in on the hype. They're aiming to change the world as we know it. And we've only just scratched the surface.
There's a lot more to uncover, including a rumor that has the entire crypto community buzzing. We'll dive into that and more in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, you definitely got me hooked. We'll be right back after a quick break to continue exploring the fascinating world of HBAR.
So welcome back to our deep dive into HBAR. Before the break, we were talking about the potential of HBAR and its underlying technology, Hedera Hashgraph, and how its unique governance model is kind of shaking things up.
Yeah, it's definitely not your typical anything-goes crypto scene. Having these big established companies like Google and IBM involved, it definitely raises some eyebrows. So let's dig a little deeper into this governance model. How does it actually work in practice?
Okay, so picture this. You've got this council chamber and these 39 organizations representing all sorts of industries and parts of the world. They come together to make decisions about the future of Hedera. They vote on things like network upgrades, how much the fees should be, even new ways to use the platform.
So it's kind of like a democracy for the Hedera ecosystem.
Yeah,
But instead of individual voters, it's these major organizations calling the shots.
exactly. And you know, this approach has its advantages. For one thing, it brings stability and predictability, which is something that a lot of cryptocurrencies lack.
Yeah, I can see how that would be attractive to big companies, especially those that are thinking about adopting blockchain technology. They want to know that the platform they're building on is solid.
Right, and it also helps to avoid some of the problems that other blockchains have, like those hard forks and those big governance disputes.
It's a smoother ride.
Exactly. But it's not just about the big players. Hedera has also created a way for smaller developers and individuals to have a say through a community-led governance process. It's still in its early stages, though.
Oh, so it's not just a corporate playground. There's room for the little guy, too.
Absolutely. It's all about making sure that Hedera stays true to its core values, decentralization and accessibility. But let's move on from the governance stuff and talk about the exciting part, the actual projects being built on this platform. Your research was full of some pretty mind-blowing examples.
Oh, I know, right? I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole tokenized real estate thing.
Yeah.
But before we start daydreaming about owning a virtual piece of the Eiffel Tower, I'm curious about some other practical applications. What else stood out to you?
Okay, so there was this one that I thought was really cool. It's called the Atma.io platform, and it's using Hedera to create a system for tracking where products come from. Like imagine you're at the store and you scan a QR code on a bottle of wine and you can see its entire journey from the vineyard all the way to your
Wait,
glass.
hold on. Are you saying I could actually see the history of my favorite bottle of Cabernet? That's amazing. Talk about a conversation starter.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes way beyond just being a cool party trick. This technology could completely change supply chains. You could ensure that products are authentic. You could fight counterfeiting. You could even promote ethical sourcing.
So it's like giving every product a digital passport that tells its whole story. That's incredible. What other real-world applications are out there?
Okay, so another one that I thought was really interesting was Coupon Bureau. They're using Hedera to create a better system for digital coupons.
Okay, that one I can definitely get behind. I love a good deal. But how are they using blockchain to improve something as simple as coupons?
Well, think about all the problems with traditional coupons. There's fraud, they expire, it's a pain to keep track of them. Coupon Bureau is using Hedera to create digital coupons that can't be faked, you can track them easily, and they're super easy to use.
So no more digging through my wallet for expired coupons. I'm sold. But seriously, it's fascinating to see how blockchain can be used to improve even the little things in life.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of Hedera. It's not just about these big futuristic ideas, it's also about making practical improvements to things we use every day.
Okay, so we've talked about the tech, the governance, the applications. But let's be real, one of the biggest questions people have about any cryptocurrency is it going to make me rich?
Of course. The million-dollar question. Now, I can't give you any financial advice, but I will say that your research did include some pretty optimistic price predictions for HBAR. Some analysts think it could hit $10, maybe even $20 during the next bull run,
Right.
especially if Hedera keeps growing at this rate.
Okay, now you're talking.
Yeah.
But we all know that the crypto market is unpredictable. What are these analysts basing their predictions on?
Well, one thing is Hedera's unique governance model, with its focus on enterprise adoption. The fact that all these big companies are not only involved in running it, but are also building real-world applications, that's a strong sign of its potential.
Right. It's like a snowball effect. The more companies that use it, the more valuable HBR becomes. And then there's the whole tokenization thing, which could open up a whole new world of investment opportunities.
Absolutely. And don't forget about the technological advantages we talked about earlier. Hedera's speed, efficiency, and security. They all make it a really attractive alternative to other platforms.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of fuel for this HBAR hype train. But before we get too carried away, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Regulations. Governments around the world are starting to crack down on crypto. And that can make investors nervous.
Yeah, that's a great point. Regulation is definitely the wild card in all of this. But the good news is that Hedera seems to be taking a proactive approach. They're focusing on compliance. And they have this council of established organizations, so they're not just ignoring the issue.
So they're not just burying their heads in the sand and hoping for the best.
Nope, they're actually working with regulators to make sure that Hedera is operating within the law, which could be a huge advantage for them in the long run.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like they're trying to build trust with the authorities, which could ultimately lead to more mainstream adoption.
Exactly.
Okay, but before we get too deep into the regulatory weeds, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, the rumor mill. Your sources hinted at some pretty juicy speculations surrounding HBAR. What's the scoop?
Well, there have been some rumors going around about a potential acquisition that could really shake things up in the crypto world. The word on the street is that Hedera might be interested in acquiring Google Chrome.
Wait, are you serious? Google Chrome, as in the web browser that, like, everyone uses.
That's the one. Now, it's important to remember that this is just a rumor at this point, but Hedera did post something kind of cryptic on social media about being a dinosaur, which a lot of people took as a reference to Chrome's offline dinosaur game.
That's interesting. It could be a brilliant marketing move. Or maybe people are just reading too much into things. But even if it's just speculation, the fact that people are even talking about it says a lot about the potential they see in Hedera.
Absolutely. I mean, the implications of such an acquisition would be huge. Imagine if your web browser was seamlessly connected to a blockchain platform. It would open up so many possibilities for decentralized applications and services.
Yeah, we'd be talking about a whole new level of mainstream adoption for crypto. That's pretty exciting stuff. But let's come back down to earth for a minute. We've talked a lot about the potential upside of HBAR. But what about the risks? What should potential investors be cautious about?
Well, the first thing to remember is that the crypto market is inherently volatile, and HBAR is no exception. Prices can go up and down really quickly, and there's always the risk of losing money.
So no guarantees of getting rich quick.
Hmm.
That's a bummer. But are there any specific risks associated with HBAR that listeners should be aware of?
Well, one concern is competition. Hedera isn't the only blockchain platform out there. There are tons of others competing for attention and investment, some of which have been around longer and have more users.
So it's a crowded playing field.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that Hedera will come out on top.
Right. Another risk factor is regulatory uncertainty. As we talked about earlier, governments are still trying to figure out how to regulate cryptocurrencies, and any new regulations could have a big impact on HBAR's price and adoption.
Okay, so it sounds like investing in HBAR comes with its fair share of risks.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about taking the plunge?
Well, the most important thing is to do your own research. Don't just rely on what you hear from other people. Take the time to understand the technology, the team behind it, the real-world applications, and the potential risks.
So it's all about being an informed investor. Don't just jump on the bandwagon.
Exactly, and only invest what you can afford to lose. The crypto market is really speculative. There are no guarantees.
Okay, so to wrap up this second part of our HBAR deep dive, we've taken a closer look at its governance model, explored some fascinating real-world applications, and even indulged in a little bit of speculation about a potential Google Chrome acquisition.
Yeah, and we've also talked about the potential risks and rewards of investing in HBAR and how important it is to do your research and make informed decisions.
But there's one more crucial piece of the puzzle we need to look at before we can really get a sense of HBR's prospects. And that's what the experts are saying about its long-term potential.
So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll unpack what the experts think about HBR's future and what it all means for you.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our HBR deep dive. We've talked about the technology, the governance, the possibilities, but we can't forget about the real world. And that means talking about regulations. It's where the cutting edge of crypto meets the rules. And sometimes those two things don't always see eye to eye.
Yeah, it can definitely get a little complicated. Crypto has always been about pushing the boundaries, challenging the traditional way of doing things in finance. But governments are starting to pay attention, and that's creating both opportunities and challenges for cryptos like HBAR.
Yeah, it feels like we're in the wild west of crypto regulation. Everyone's trying to figure out the rules as we go. But for someone thinking about investing in HBAR, what are the regulatory developments they absolutely need to know? Are there any red flags or silver linings to look out for?
Well, one of the biggest things on the horizon is the European Union's MiCA regulation. That stands for Markets in Crypto Assets. It's supposed to go into effect in 2024. And it's basically trying to create a unified set of rules for crypto across the EU.
So it's like bringing some order to the chaos. But does that mean HBAR and Hedera will have to jump through a bunch of hoops to comply?
It's definitely possible. Compliance can be expensive and time-consuming, but in the long run, it could actually be a good thing for HBAR. Think about it. If big institutional investors, the ones with tons of money, are looking for a safe and regulated way to get into crypto, Hedera could be really attractive because they've already taken steps to comply with MiCA.
Right, it's like getting a seal of approval. And in the world of finance, that means a lot. But the EU isn't the only one watching crypto closely, right? What about the US? What happens there tends to have a big impact on global markets.
Oh, absolutely. The U.S. is a major player in the crypto space. And the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, has been really cracking down on some of the wilder aspects of the industry. They've taken action against a bunch of crypto projects, and there's a lot of uncertainty about how they'll regulate different cryptos in the future.
Okay, so this is where things get tricky, because depending on how HBAR is classified, is it a security, a commodity, something else, it could face very different regulations, and that could have a huge impact on its future.
Exactly. And so far, the SEC hasn't been super clear about how they view HBAR. There are arguments to be made on both sides. It's something investors definitely need to pay attention to. But here's the thing. Regulation can be annoying, but it can also be a necessary step towards wider adoption. It's about building trust, protecting investors, and making things fair.
So maybe it's not all bad. Could embracing regulation actually give HBAR an edge?
I think it could. Imagine if HBAR manages to navigate all the regulations and comes out as a trusted and compliant player. That could attract big investors, encourage more people to use it, and ultimately drive up the price.
Right. It's like the tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady wins the race, especially when it comes to finance and regulations. But let's shift gears a bit. We've heard a lot about regulations, but what are the experts saying about HBR's long-term potential? Are they as optimistic as some of those price predictions we've seen?
There's definitely a lot of positive sentiment out there. Several well-respected analysts and institutions have said good things about HBR. They point to things like its unique governance model, strong partnerships,
Yeah.
and the growing number of real-world applications as reasons to be optimistic about its future.
So it's not all just hype. There's some real substance behind the excitement.
Definitely. Of course, there are always some people who disagree. That's just how it is with investments. Some analysts are more cautious. They warn against getting caught up in the hype and remind us that the crypto market is unpredictable and that there could be unexpected challenges.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's important to remember that there are no guarantees, especially in crypto. But overall, it sounds like there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to HBAR.
I think so. The technology is impressive, the team is strong, and the potential is huge. But at the end of the day, the decision to invest in HBAR is a personal one. It's about weighing the risks and rewards, thinking about your own financial goals, and doing your research.
Well said. As we've been saying throughout this whole deep dive, knowledge is power.
Mm.
The more you know about an investment, the better decisions you can make. And that's what we've tried to do in this episode, give you a complete picture of HBAR. From the tech to the real-world applications to the regulations, we've explored the potential, the challenges, the hopes, and the hype. Now it's up to you to decide whether HBAR deserves a spot in your investment portfolio.
And as always, we encourage you to keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep exploring. The world of crypto is always changing. There's always something new to discover.
And that's what makes it so exciting. Thanks for joining us this deep dive into the world of HBAR. We hope you found it informative and engaging, and maybe even a little bit mind-blowing. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.